A black woman was removed from her first-class seat, so a white man could sit there instead. She didn't yell. She didn't curse. She just stood up and made a decision. Before that plane even touched the ground, she had already decided to fire every crew member involved. What the airline didn't know was that she wasn't just a passenger. She was the owner of the company that financed the very aircraft they were flying. Her name is Darlene Ford, and by the time this story ends, you'll never forget it. So who is she, and how did one woman turn an act of humiliation into a reform that changed the aviation industry forever? Ma'am, I'm going to need you to step out of this seat. Atlanta Hartsfield Jackson Airport, Gate B 191122 IMing. The man's voice wasn't loud by accident, it was loud by design, the kind of voice meant to draw attention. And it did. Heads turned. The air in business class shifted, just a little colder. Darlene Ford looked up, slowly. She wore oversized sunglasses that covered most of her face, the kind celebrities wear not to be seen but to remind you they're there. A cream linen suit hugged her shoulders just right. Her heels were modest, low, comfortable. Her tote was leather. Worn, not flashy, but expensive. Quiet expensive. She was sitting in seat 3A. Window, business class, where she belonged. The man now standing in front of her wore a navy blazer, an airline badge, and the kind of smile that never reached his eyes. Philip Raleigh, customer experience supervisor. "Excuse me?" Darlene asked. Calm. Smooth. Her voice was soft but carried, like something you'd hear across a courtroom floor. "Your seat's been reassigned, ma'am. We'll need you to relocate to economy." Just like that. No, "I'm sorry," no explanation, no room for error, just the assumption that she didn't belong. A young white woman in seat 3C turned her head slightly. A businessman in 4A lifted his newspaper, but his eyes peeked over the top, quiet, calculating. A grandmother in 2B raised her phone and hit record. No one spoke up, but almost everyone was watching. Darlene reached into her blazer, pulled out a paper boarding pass and laid it gently on the armrest between them. "This was purchased under my name through corporate priority." Philip didn't even glance down. Instead, he stepped aside. 2 flight attendants arrived. One of them white, barely 25. The other Latina, older but avoiding eye contact. "Ma'am," the younger one started, rehearsed and uncomfortable. "This section is reserved for our elite-tier guests. There may have been a system error." "I am elite-tier," Darlene replied, her accent smooth Southern, the kind worn proudly by black women raised in church pews and conference rooms. Philip cut in. "There may have been a clerical issue with the list. You've been reassigned to seat 21." And just like that, 3A was no longer hers. The silence that followed wasn't silent at all. You could hear the pressure in it. A woman whispered to her husband, "Did they just bump her? For him?" Another voice behind them, "Sure looked like it." From the front of the plane, a tall, white man in a gray suit entered the cabin, his expression unreadable. He glanced toward 3A, then nodded. Philip Raleigh smiled. He turned back to Darlene. "You'll be escorted now." Darlene didn't argue. She stood, not fast, not flustered, not defeated, just stood. And the whole cabin felt it. Not one raised voice, but something shifted. Down in row 21, economy, a young white man stood up so she could slide into her new seat. He looked nervous. "Ma'am," he said quietly, "I'm sorry, that wasn't right." Darlene didn't respond. She opened her tote and pulled out an older model iPhone, screen slightly cracked, case plain black. She dialed. No contact name, just the letter B on the screen. "I'll be arriving 40 minutes behind schedule," she said. "Activate version 2. That was it. She ended the call, slipped the phone back into her tote. Didn't even blink. A few rows up, a young black employee in a Heritage Airlines uniform stood frozen near the galley door. She had watched the entire thing. She gripped the corner of a food cart until her knuckles whitened, but said nothing. At the back of the cabin, a teenager live-streamed the whole scene. The video title read, "Black woman removed from business class for white man. Airline says nothing." Meanwhile, Darlene Ford sat in 21C, calm, silent, unmoved, not defeated, just waiting for the wheels to touch down. Flight 662 to Atlanta to New York, cruising altitude 31,000 feet. The silence stretched, long and sticky. It wasn't the kind of silence that calms you. It was the kind that buzzes between people too polite to speak and too aware to ignore. Row 3 was quiet. Too quiet. The man now seated in seat 3A, a white man, mid-40s, golf watch, pressed blazer, confidence, sipped his sparkling water like nothing had happened. He didn't look back. He didn't need to. 2 rows behind, the woman in seat 5D turned to her husband and whispered, "You saw that, right? The way they just moved her? She must have been in the wrong seat," he mumbled back. "She had the pass in her hand," the woman replied. "I saw it." In the back of the plane, row 21, Darlene sat perfectly still, back straight, eyes closed, not sleeping, not resting, just centering. Her tote bag was tucked tightly beneath the seat in front of her. A woman across the aisle, younger, with a baby in her lap, kept glancing over, then looking away fast, like she might get caught thinking too much. And 3 rows ahead, in seat 18A, a college-age black girl named Zora had her phone out, not recording. Not yet, just watching. She leaned to her friend and whispered, "Something feels off." "That lady? That's not just some lady." Her friend blinked. "What do you mean?" Zora shook her head. "I've seen that face before. I think she was on Forbes, maybe Fortune." She tapped at her phone, pulling up a search bar. Meanwhile, up front, the tension hadn't gone away. It had simply moved. One of the flight attendants, the older one, the Latina, glanced toward the cockpit, then back to the cabin. She'd been with Heritage Airlines for over 15 years. She'd seen things before. But this felt different. She leaned toward the other flight attendant, the younger white woman. "That passenger they moved?" she murmured. The younger one glanced over her shoulder, kept her voice low. "I don't know what happened. Philip told me to stay quiet. He said she didn't belong." She showed a boarding pass. "I know. I saw it." Back in the cabin, the man in 3A scrolled on his phone, then smiled. He lifted his hand and waved at one of the flight attendants, the younger one. "I'll take another sparkling water, please, and that hot towel when you get a chance." She nodded. Didn't make eye contact, just walked away. At the rear of the plane, the live stream was still active. The teenager behind the camera, TikTok handle @Justice4Coffee, whispered into her mic. "Y'all saw that, right? They moved that black lady out of business class for this dude. And no one said a word. She didn't yell, didn't cuss, just gave them a look. The kind of look my grandma gives when she's done praying and ready to act." Comments rolled in. "OMG, is this real? She looks like somebody. What's her name? Y'all better document everything." Zora was still scrolling, her eyes narrowed. She typed, "Black woman CEO, linen suit, Atlanta flight, removed from business class." A name popped up, then another, then a photo. Same face, same poise, same glasses. "Darlene Ford," she whispered. Her friend blinked. "Ford? Like Ford and Langston?" Zora nodded. "She's the CEO." Her voice wasn't loud, but it didn't have to be. 2 rows in front of her, someone a businessman. He recognized the name Ford and Langston, the private equity firm that just inked a multi-million-dollar deal with Heritage Airlines. At the front of the plane, the older flight attendant's radio buzzed. She listened. Her eyes flickered toward row 21. "Copy that," she said, voice tight. "Understood." She turned to her coworker. "Gate control just flagged something. We might have a situation on arrival." The young one looked alarmed. "Security?" "Not that kind of situation," she said. "A VIP situation." Back in economy, Darlene opened her eyes. She reached into her tote and pulled out a small leather folio. She opened it, jotted something down with a pen that clicked softly. The woman across the aisle leaned over, hesitated, then asked, "Excuse me, ma'am, sorry to bother. Do you need anything? I can ask them if they'll bring you water or something." Darlene looked at her and smiled gently, not polite, not performative, genuine. "No, sweetheart," she said. "They'll be bringing more than water soon enough." And she closed the folio. Flight 662, 38 minutes from arrival. From row 21, it didn't look like anything special. Just a woman. Older, elegant, reserved. Reaching into her tote bag and pulling out a phone again. She didn't check the weather. She didn't scroll social media. She just opened her calendar, tapped once, then twice. And then she called someone. Up in the galley, the older flight attendant's radio buzzed again. "VIP request coming through," the voice crackled. "Name flagged on manifest. Passenger D4, you have eyes on her?" Her heart dropped. "Copy," she said, already walking down the aisle. "Row 3? No. Row 21. The attendant stopped mid-step. "Say again?" "Passenger 4 is seated in 21C. Confirmed mismatch." In the cabin, Darlene's voice was low, but her tone had shifted. Calm, still, but colder now, controlled in a way that suggested she wasn't just used to power, she built systems that distributed it. "Yes. Flight 662, I've been reassigned without cause," she said. "Send it. And activate the advisory clause." She listened, then nodded, even though no one could see. "Yes, start with legal. No, do not wait for confirmation. Pull the contract now." She hung up. Row 20 went still. The man beside her swallowed hard. The mother across the aisle didn't pretend not to stare. This time, something had shifted. At the front of the plane, Philip Rowley's phone buzzed, a silent vibration. Barely noticed. He glanced down. Incoming, notification, special account match, status red flag, contact corporate relations immediately. He frowned, walked to the galley, pulled up his work tablet, searched a name, Darlene M. Ford. When the profile loaded, his stomach dropped. Ford and Langston Capital title, Chief Executive Officer, net worth estimated $860.00. Mao, recent transaction, strategic investment with Heritage Airlines, Q1 FY25. He stared. Back in economy, the young woman in row 18, Zora, was texting furiously now. "It's her, Darlene Ford. She's worth millions, maybe more. Why is she in 21C? Screenshots flew between phones. Up in business class, the man in 3A had finally noticed the whispers behind him. He looked over his shoulder briefly, then back to his drink. 10 minutes passed, then, from the cockpit, a soft chime sounded. The lead flight attendant stepped in quietly, spoke directly to the captain. "Ma'am, we've been instructed to treat a passenger as Tier 0. The captain blinked. "We don't have a Tier 0. "You do now." Philip Rowley was already pale when the airline's crisis team called directly. A voice on the other end didn't ask questions. "Do not engage the passenger again. Do not issue statements. Do not mention her name aloud." Philip started to say something, to defend himself maybe, but the voice cut him off. "She's not just a VIP. She's your partner." The call ended. Zora looked across the aisle. The woman was calm, still writing something in that little folio. Occasionally she'd glance at her phone. Nothing rushed, no panic. Her pen clicked. She made one more note. Zora leaned in. "She's running something from back here." Her friend replied, "She's running everything from back here." The plane started its descent. A chime rang out. Seatbelts clicked into place. The man in 3A adjusted his seat. No idea. Philip Rowley stood frozen in the galley. And, in 21C, quiet, centered, unbothered. Darlene Ford checked her watch, then smiled. Flight 662. Final descent into New York. 11 minutes to landing. It started with a calendar update. No grand gestures, no raised voice, just a notification, quietly pushed to over 40 executive inboxes at 11:44 IE Eastern. Activated Clause B7, activated by Ford and Langston Executive Chair. Subject, Emergency Governance Review. Heritage Airlines contractual standing effective immediately. Inside the first-class galley, Raleigh's tablet pinged again, this time with a warning in red, contracted partner in breach review. Escalate to General Counsel. He looked like he'd seen a ghost. Down in row 21, Darlene adjusted her seatbelt, still poised, still silent. But everything had already shifted. The man next to her tried not to look, but failed. He finally leaned closer. "Ma'am, I don't mean to be nosy, but are you like someone important?" Darlene turned to him, eyes kind but unwavering. "I'm just someone who doesn't appreciate being told where she doesn't belong." And then she turned her gaze forward. In seat 3A, the man who'd replaced her was rubbing his temples. Something about the energy around him had changed. Not louder, but heavier. He glanced back again, this time seeing more passengers watching him than before. Some had phones out, some just stared. Flight attendants were whispering now, not behind curtains but openly in the aisles. The younger one had gone pale. The older attendant had locked eyes with the captain, who said only, "Whatever happens when we land, let's not make it worse." A second chime rang from the overhead system, but this one wasn't from the cockpit. It was the onboard satellite uplink, legacy system only triggered by high-level internal comms. The captain looked at the light. "We haven't had a level 1 inbound since COVID lockdowns." At that exact moment, back at Heritage Airlines headquarters, the director of partner relations was staring at a big screen notification. Tier 1 partner dispute, Ford and Langston Holdings, real time. He picked up the phone. "Get me legal and prep the statement." Darlene's phone vibrated once. Quiet. She didn't check it immediately. Instead, she leaned forward slightly and pressed the flight attendant call button. A beat. Then the older attendant appeared. "Yes, ma'am?" Darlene didn't raise her voice. She didn't ask for champagne. She simply said, "Please let your captain know he'll be receiving a call in 5 minutes. From his board of directors." The woman blinked. "I'm sorry?" "You won't need to be," Darlene replied, "as long as you step aside when the call comes in." The attendant disappeared like a ghost into the galley. The younger one followed her in a hurry. Passengers watched them whisper. Some began filming. Something was happening. No one knew what, but everyone felt it. The air was changing. In seat 18A, Zora texted again. "She's not even talking, and somehow everyone else is panicking." Her friend sent back, "Queen behavior." The plane banked slightly as it prepared for landing. The captain's headset crackled. A voice came through. Not ATC, not ground crew. "Captain Rowan, you're instructed to confirm the presence of a Tier 0 account holder on board. Do you copy?" He froze. "Confirming. Prepare to receive board-level directives upon landing. You are not to deplane the passenger in seat 21C. Do you understand?" The captain turned to the co-pilot. "What the hell is a Tier 0? The answer came instantly. "Apparently," the voice said, "it means she signs our checks." Back in economy, Darlene took a single breath, measured, precise, and with nothing more than that, the balance of power shifted mid-air. Flight 662 touchdown plus 3 minutes. The wheels hit the ground. A soft bump, a small bounce, a whisper of rubber against runway. But inside the plane, everything had already landed differently. In the cockpit, Captain Rowan took off his headset like it had burned him. He didn't look at his co-pilot. He didn't speak to the crew. He reached for the internal line. "Notify the gate. Flight crew is not authorized to deplane passengers until further notice. And get me legal." In the galley, the 2 flight attendants stood shoulder to shoulder, stiff as statues. The older one had worked through hurricanes, emergency landings, even an in-flight berth once. But she had never heard the phrase, Tier 0, in 20 years. The younger one had stopped trying to hide her panic. "I think we're going to be fired," she whispered. The older woman didn't answer. but the look in her eyes said, not if, just when. Up in seat 3A, the man who'd taken Darlene's original spot was now fidgeting. He was watching the flurry in the galley, the hush around the cockpit, the glances. He knew something had shifted. He just didn't know what or who. And when he turned, just briefly to look back toward row 21, he saw phones everywhere. People were recording now, not because they understood, but because they felt the weight of whatever was coming. In seat 21C, Darlene closed her folio. She didn't need to check her phone. She already knew. The wheels had touched ground, but her influence had landed long before. At the front of the aircraft, the gate agent's screen flashed, "Hold all boarding bridges. Incoming priority escort requested." She'd never seen that message in 10 years. She tapped the screen again, then again. Same message, then a second one. "Do not remove passenger 21C without executive clearance. This is a governance-level alert." Her hands trembled. Back inside the plane, the intercom didn't come on. There was no cheery "Welcome to New York" message, no "Please remain seated" speech. Instead, silence. And silence always speaks loudest. In seat 18A, Zora whispered, "They're not opening the door." Her friend nodded. "Something's about to go very viral." On the live stream from the back of the plane, at Justice for Coffee was now up to 6,700 viewers. She's still in 21C, y'all. No flight crew is moving. Captain looks like he saw a ghost, and rumor is this woman owns part of the airline. Comments flooded in. Who is she? The calm ones always win in the end. This about to be Delta Part 2, but with receipts. We ride at dawn. Inside the crew's internal Slack channel, panic had officially gone digital. Screenshots of Darlene's business profile circulated. Her face, her company, her contracts. And then someone posted the worst message of all. She's not just a client. She's a controlling partner. Her firm negotiated our new fleet deal. At the front of the plane, the captain stepped out. Not in his usual posture, not the chest-up, chin-high, authority-on-the-ground posture. He looked like a man trying to undo a mistake with posture alone. He walked past first class, past 3A, past 10A, past 17C. He stopped at row 21. "Ms. Ford," Darlene looked up. "Yes, Captain?" He swallowed. "I'd like to personally apologize for—" She raised her hand. "No apologies, Captain, not until we've spoken with your board." She didn't say it with anger. She said it like it was a matter of schedule. "Of course," he said. Then came the final signal. A black town car pulled up to the tarmac. A woman in a navy suit stepped out, phone to her ear, badge clipped at the waist. Behind her, two men in tailored jackets. Not police, not TSA. Corporate security. Private. Silent. They weren't there to arrest anyone. They were there to witness. In row 3, the man who took Darlene's seat leaned over and whispered to the woman in 3C, "I think I just made a career-ending mistake." The woman didn't look at him. She was already uploading a video with the caption, "White man bumps black CEO from her seat. Doesn't know she owns part of the company." In row 21, Darlene stood, straightened her jacket, grabbed her tote, and walked, calm and steady, to the front of the plane, where the captain stepped aside. As she passed the galley, she paused, looked at the two attendants. "You'll both want to check your inbox when we land," she said. She didn't say it cruelly. She said it clearly. As Darlene stepped off the plane, the live stream viewers jumped past 12,000, and someone in the comments said what everyone else was thinking. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. That's how power moves. 8:17. JFK Airport. 12:27 p.m. The jet bridge was still empty. Passengers sat frozen inside the plane, their seatbelts long unbuckled, belongings in their laps, yet no one moved. It wasn't turbulence holding them back, it was the weather inside the cabin. And all of it centered on one woman, Darlene Ford stood near the exit, not blocking it, just anchoring it. She had requested one thing from the captain: clear the gate area before ID plane. He had obeyed without question. No boarding agents, no press, no other passengers allowed near the jet bridge, only her. And the three people waiting just beyond the aircraft door. The first was Naomi Sinclair, head of corporate relations at Heritage Airlines, a woman used to leading rooms full of executives. Today, she looked like she'd been summoned to the principal's office. The second was Greg Mathers, general counsel, holding a manila folder and chewing the inside of his cheek like it owed him something. The third was silent, a man in an unmarked gray suit. He didn't speak, he didn't blink, he just observed. Darlene stepped off the plane, smooth, no ceremony, no pause. She looked at Naomi. "Was the board informed?" Naomi nodded quickly. "Yes, Ms. Ford, they're assembled. They've asked if you prefer to—" "I'll address them in person. 15 minutes. Your Manhattan office, conference room D." Greg spoke up. "Should we arrange transport?" "No," Darlene interrupted. "I have my own car, but I'll need your internal incident logs, raw footage from the security feed, and a printout of staff certifications. I want names." Greg hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, of course." Behind her, the flight crew had begun deboarding in silence. Philip Raleigh stepped onto the jet bridge looking like a man headed for trial. He opened his mouth. Darlene raised a hand, not rudely but decisively. "Not now." He stopped speaking immediately. The two flight attendants followed. The younger one had been crying, quietly. She looked 19 again. The older one kept her chin up, but her lips pressed together like she was holding back everything she wanted to say. Darlene turned slightly. "You'll both receive official communication within the hour. I suggest you read it carefully before replying." Neither responded. Neither had to. They already knew. A security officer with an earpiece stepped forward. "Mrs. Ford, your vehicle is ready. Direct to Manhattan. Police escort optional." "Unnecessary," she replied. She turned back, looking at the jet bridge behind her, the plane, the silence, the system that had assumed she was no one. And with her voice as steady as ever, she said to Naomi, "And starting today, I'm the one giving the orders." Heritage Airlines Executive Boardroom. 1:08 p.m., Manhattan HQ. The room was oak and glass and tension. 12 seats around the table. 10 of them filled with board members. 1 seat at the head, empty, waiting. Until she stepped in, Darlene Ford didn't pause. She walked the full length of the table, her heels soft against the carpet. Her tote bag hung from one arm, her gaze even, unhurried, unimpressed. Naomi Sinclair rose first. "Ms. Ford." "No formalities," Darlene said, placing her folder at the center of the table. "Let's begin." The room sat straighter. She looked at them, slowly. "Before I proceed, let me ask a single question." She raised one brow. "Does anyone at this table believe my removal from seat 3A this morning was based on a system error?" Silence. Eyes darted. No one answered. "Good." Darlene opened her folder, slid the first document forward. Shareholder Agreement, Section 9B. The ownership clause. The legal counsel leaned in. She continued, "Ford and Langston currently owns 18.7% of Heritage Airlines. That includes direct shares and strategic cross-holdings." She slid a second page across the table. Per Clause 9EB, any incident that triggers public scandal, legal liability, or breach of anti-discrimination compliance grants immediate review rights to the shareholder named here. She tapped the page. "Me?" A board member cleared his throat. "Ms. Ford, surely this can be resolved." "I'm not here to resolve," she said. "I'm here to restructure." She pulled out a flash drive, plugged it into the embedded display port. A video appeared on the monitor. It wasn't a live stream, it was Heritage's own internal security footage. "Raw 3, Darlene holding out her boarding pass, Raleigh refusing to look at it. The flight attendants approaching. Seat 3A reassigned, muted, but crystal clear. Overlay that, Darlene said, with the contract summary. A spreadsheet appeared. Line item 14, Fleet Modernization Deal, signed March 18. Ford and Langston Equity Partnership, valued at $320.00 M. She turned. Now ask yourselves, how do your shareholders feel knowing you humiliated the woman who funded your aircraft refresh? Greg, the general counsel, finally spoke. Ms. Ford, we take this seriously, but I want to remind the board that public action may create legal exposure. Darlene nodded, and so would inaction. She pulled out the final document. This is a prepared resolution. If passed today, it allows Ford and Langston to appoint a temporary equity compliance officer with discretionary authority. Let me guess, a woman in glasses said quietly. You've already chosen that officer. Darlene smiled. Yes, me. No one moved. Then Naomi, who had once feared being in this room with Darlene, finally said what no one else would. She owns the damn plane, and we treated her like a stowaway. Silence again. Darlene tapped the table once. This isn't about apologies, it's about alignment. I'm not here to fight with you. I'm here to make sure this never happens again, to me or to anyone who looks like me. The vote passed unanimously. Darlene stood slowly. Then we begin immediately. She turned to Naomi. Have HR prepare dismissal paperwork for Raleigh and the cabin crew, effective tonight. Naomi nodded. Prepare an internal memo. I'll give you the language. Greg raised a finger. And the public statement? Darlene packed her folder. That comes next, but not from you, from me. Heritage Airlines HQ, executive level, 2 p.m. The elevator opened with a soft chime. Darlene Ford stepped out, flanked by 2 members of her compliance team. Both women, both black, both hand-picked for today. She wasn't here to collect apologies, she was here to implement them. First stop, Human Resources. She handed a sealed envelope to the director. Effective immediately, she said. Philip Raleigh is terminated. Cause, dereliction of duty, failure to verify ID, and breach of equity clause 12F. The director blinked. Do we notify him? No, he'll be contacted by legal. His badge has already been deactivated. Next, the communications team. Darlene stood in front of the entire department, 20 staffers, stunned into silence. I'm assuming you've prepared a response, she said. A man raised a trembling hand. Yes, Miss Ford, we have a draft acknowledging... Scrap it. He hesitated. I'll write the statement myself, Darlene said. It will come from the CEO of the company, not from behind the PR curtain. No passive voice, no legalese, just truth. She looked across the room. Because if we can't say the words, we failed her, then we haven't learned anything. She returned to the boardroom, opened her laptop, typed a short, clear message. To all staff subject, policy update, effective immediately. All customer-facing staff will complete anti-bias certification within 30 days. A new anonymous reporting system is now active, administered by a third-party firm. Every passenger must be treated in accordance with dignity protocols, regardless of appearance, title, or tier. Violations will result in immediate disciplinary review. She hit send. Downstairs, Philip Raleig's badge scanner lit up red. Security met him at the exit. You're no longer authorized to be on property, one officer said quietly. Raleigh didn't argue. He just asked, is this because of that woman? No, the officer replied. It's because of your choices. On the airline's internal Slack, employees watched the notifications roll in. First came the new protocol, then the firing, then the policy shift, then the announcement. A breaking news update from Heritage's social media channels. This morning, one of our most important partners, a black CEO, was removed from her rightful seat. That incident was unacceptable. We've taken immediate corrective action, but more importantly, we're changing how we serve every passenger moving forward. Everyone deserves to fly with dignity. The message wasn't signed Communications Department. It was signed Darlene M. Ford, Interim Executive Compliance Officer, Equity Division CEO, Ford and Langston Holdings. Up in first class on Flight 778. A different aircraft, a different crew. A flight attendant read the announcement on her tablet. She turned to her colleague. "Did you hear what happened to Raleigh?" "Gone? Gone. That CEO cleaned house in under 6 hours." The ripple was spreading. In a training center in Denver, new hire orientation paused mid-video. An instructor cleared her throat. So we just got a message from HQ." She pulled up the policy update on screen. "Yeah. We're rewriting this entire handbook?" Darlene sat alone in a temporary office at Heritage HQ. She sipped tea, Earl Grey, no sugar. Her phone buzzed. An email from the board. Subject: Full Transfer of Authority, Equity Compliance Division. Approved. Effective immediately, you have full discretion for hiring, training, and disciplinary policy related to DEI compliance. She didn't smile. She simply folded the laptop closed. Then she looked out the window. Not toward the city, welcoming, but toward the runways, and the planes still flying under rules that, until today, had never included her. Now they did. Heritage Airlines HQ, 7:30 a.m. next day. The boardroom lights were already on before sunrise. The chairs were filled. The legal team, the operations team, the union reps, the compliance auditors, and at the head of the table, Darlene Ford. No one spoke until she did. "We are no longer responding to a crisis," she began. "We are redesigning the culture that allowed it." A projector flickered on behind her. Slide 1. Dignity Initiative, Phase 1, within 72 hours. She turned to the COO. "Status on terminations?" "All complete," he replied. "Raleigh and both flight attendants from Flight 662 have been dismissed. HR reviewed the footage and incident transcripts. The firings are clean." "Backfill them within a week," Darlene said. "Diverse hires only, no exceptions. This is your reset." She turned to the General Counsel. "Is the third-party reporting portal live?" "Yes, as of 6:00 IEM. Staff have been notified. Submissions are routed to an independent ethics firm. Response time? Under 24 hours by contract." "Good." Slide 2. Training and recertification, Darlene. Addressed the head of training and development. "All customer-facing staff will complete our new anti-bias training module. 30 days. Completion required to maintain badge access." The woman nodded. "We've already pulled all previous materials. Yours are being deployed today." Slide 3. Incentive alignment, executive accountability. Darlene looked at the CEO, who sat across from her like a guest in their own home. "Bonus structures," she said. "How much tied to diversity outcomes?" The CEO cleared their throat. "Currently, none." "Going forward?" she asked. "We'll adjust. You'll commit," she corrected. She turned to the Compensation Committee rep. 20% of all executive bonuses are now tied to equity, bias reduction, and culture metrics. Quarterly reviews, external auditing. The rep nodded. Understood. Slide 4. Public positioning. "We don't just fix the company," Darlene said. "We teach others how to fix theirs." The comms lead looked nervous. "I assume you'll want to review our draft PR plan?" "No," Darlene replied. "I'm releasing a statement on my channels." Her eyes scanned the room. "I will not let this be spun into a feel-good diversity story. This is not a celebration. This is a correction." Across the room, no one argued. Because no one could. In 24 hours, she had done what no committee, no task force, no corporate retreat had achieved in 5 years. She had changed the center of gravity. Her final slide read, "Deadline, 72 hours." The clock in the boardroom read 7:43 a.m. "Everything I outlined," she said, "will be in place by this time on Friday. No exceptions, no excuses. I'll be checking the logs myself." She looked directly at the CEO. "You have 66 hours left." After the meeting, her assistant caught up with her in the hallway. "Miss Ford, the Department of Transportation is requesting a briefing. They saw your policy updates. They're asking for a framework." Darlene smiled slightly. "Tell them I'll prepare a version for national distribution. If one airline can do it in 72 hours... She didn't have to finish the sentence. That evening she recorded a video in her home office. No makeup team, no lights, just a webcam and truth. "I wasn't humiliated last week because of a clerical error. I was humiliated because of a culture that assumes power doesn't look like me. But power does look like me, and it looks like every woman who's been told to wait quietly at the back of the line. I won't wait anymore, and neither should you." It was posted at midnight. By 6:00 a.m., it had been shared over 1.2 million times. 48 hours after the video dropped, they called it the Ford effect. It started with an article. "She bought the seat back, and the whole airline with it," published by the New York Times. Front page, above the fold, Darlene Ford's photo, walking down the jet bridge, surrounded by silence and history. Within 24 hours, 3 major news outlets picked up the story, then 5 more. By day 3, the headline had made its way to BBC, Al Jazeera, and Le Monde. At the same time, something else began to happen. Other women, older, black, often invisible to power, started telling their stories. A retired professor in Atlanta posted a video. "They pushed me to the back of the gate last Christmas, told me I didn't match the seat. Now I know I matched it better than they ever could have," a woman in Detroit shared. "I've been flying for 30 years, platinum status. They still treat me like I don't belong in first class." Darlene didn't just reclaim a seat, she reclaimed all of us. The movement didn't need billboards. It didn't need slogans written in the sky. It started showing up quietly, in the things people said out loud, and in the way they said them. You'd hear it in beauty salons, in radio shows, in corner store conversations. She sat down and didn't flinch. Ford changed more than the flight. She changed the rules. 21C? That's more than a seat now. That's a statement. Nobody was shouting. Nobody was pleading. They were claiming what had always been theirs. And one line in particular started to echo everywhere, on talk shows, in interviews, even in the mouths of strangers. She didn't raise her voice. She raised the standard. At a competing airlines HQ, their CEO paused the quarterly earnings review. "Anyone here think we're immune to this?" he said, holding up Darlene's video. Silence. "Didn't think so." He turned to HR. "Re-audit every single customer service protocol. I want results in 7 days, or you're all fired." Back at Heritage Airlines, emails poured in. From pilots, from janitors, from women in middle management who had never spoken up before. One said, "I didn't know someone like me could move like that. Now I do." Even the Department of Transportation issued a rare statement. "We are reviewing the Ford framework as a possible model for national equity training standards in aviation." Translation? One woman's seat became federal policy potential. A talk show host cried on air. "This isn't just about flying," she said, voice cracking. "It's about the everyday erasure of women who built the table, only to be asked to sit near the kitchen." In South Africa, a university invited Darlene to keynote. In Brazil, an Afro-Latina entrepreneur group translated her speech into Portuguese. In Paris, young black designers made a T-shirt, 21C, "We Belong Here." It sold out in 3 hours. At a small coffee shop in Harlem, 2 teenage girls were studying. One turned to the other and said, "I think I want to be her when I grow up." The other replied, "You can." In every echo, every comment, every repost, one message cut through. She didn't just sit, she shifted the weight of power. 1 year later, the Smithsonian National Museum of African American History and Culture, Washington, D.C. The exhibit wasn't flashy. No velvet ropes, no blinking lights, no grand opening ceremony. Just a quiet corner, a vintage leather airplane seat, row 21, seat C. Beside it, a plaque. This seat belonged to no one famous. until she sat in it. Curator's note, 2026. A group of schoolgirls walked past. Most didn't know the full story, not yet. But one paused, tilted her head, read the small paragraph beside the seat. The one about a woman named Darlene Ford, the flight, the fallout, the reforms. She whispered to her teacher, "Is she still alive?" The teacher smiled, "Oh yes, baby, she's still flying." Meanwhile, across the country, in an executive conference room in Seattle, a new airline's onboarding video played for fresh hires. A firm, calm voice narrated the final training module. "We lead with presence, we serve with equity, we correct with speed, and we never, ever forget the seat." The screen faded to black, and then the last slide appeared. The Ford Standard, company-wide since 2025. In New York, Darlene sat by a window at her favorite cafe. She liked it there. No special treatment, no whispers. Just morning sun, a paper cup of hot tea, and the satisfaction of silence earned. She had turned down interviews, declined awards, let the echo do the talking. Her name didn't need to be shouted. It had been written. In policy, in architecture, in culture. That was louder than any headline. A woman walked past her table, paused, turned back. "You're her, right?" the woman asked softly. "You're the seat lady?" Darlene looked up, smiled just enough. "I'm the woman," she said, "who didn't give it up." That night, she wrote a note to herself. No audience, no email, just pen and paper. "You sat down, Darlene," and they finally stood up. She folded it, slipped it inside the first boarding pass she ever kept. Row 3A, the seat she never needed back. Because she had taken something better. Control. In the quiet of the evening, her phone buzzed. A news alert. 2 new airlines adopt the Ford Standard. She didn't even open it. She simply looked out the window at the city glowing below. Because legacy isn't about who remembers your name. It's about how many lives breathe easier because you lived it loud. Thank you for staying with me till the very end. This wasn't just a story about a flight. It was about dignity, about what happens when a black woman refuses to shrink and instead decides to lead. Darlene didn't need a louder voice. She needed the world to listen. And maybe that's what we all need. A reminder that power doesn't always look like what they expect. If this moved you, please leave a comment, share your thoughts, and hit that subscribe button, because we've got more stories coming, and you won't want to miss them.